this puzzling case, and from his ex-wife.
I thought he was very intelligent, funny, very charming.
For decades, he got away with the
Right.
Hey, friends. Okay, I thought I hit mute for everyone. If you're joining, just hit mute so that way we can hear just when I start educating, because I hear all the background noise. Welcome, welcome. How are you? We will do some Q&A. Yeah, totally have you unmute yourselves later because we're going to keep this super casual tonight. I'm just going to let everyone in. Welcome, welcome. Okay, my light is super bright. Better. I have something cooking. So as you're all joining, I am just gonna stir this. It's a yummy little treat that I can't wait to share with you guys. It's like the simplest, most amazing holiday candy or whenever candy that you want to gift or just make for yourself. Welcome, welcome, come on in. I'm just gonna give everyone just another minute to join. Okay, there's a phone number I'm not familiar with, so I'm always hesitant just to let people in that I'm not sure of. So if you have a friend that's joining by phone, please let me know in the comments and then I can let them in. It's a 507-5822 number. Let me know in the comments if that's a friend of yours that's joining. Okay, so tonight we are going to learn a few things about some healthier holiday baking and forever baking, because who doesn't love baking this time of year, right? Especially when things are just, I don't know, getting a little darker, a little cooler. I mean, it should be. I feel like we've been having some summer-like days, but I have a daughter that loves to bake every single day. And so we go through a lot of flour and sugar and just ingredients. And teaching her to bake with healthier flours and healthier sugars is exciting. It's also a challenge because she sees the white flour and she's like, ooh, I'm just gonna use that. And the white sugar, ooh, I'm just gonna use that. Because I think for her, it's sweeter. She knows the difference and she likes really sweet things. So, all right, let's get started. My name is Sarah Stutzman. Thank you all for joining me in my kitchen. And so late at night, I feel like it's like 9 o'clock at night. Anyone else? I actually took a nap before this. And my kids had to wake me up. They're like, Mom, it's your time to do your Zoom call. Because I've been in bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. I'm like crazy. Like it's just this time change has been crazy. So we're gonna keep this short and sweet tonight. and then we'll open it up for questions. So there is a reason why we want to start switching over to healthier flours and healthier sugars, not just for, you know, this time of year, but also for any time of year. So tonight we're going to talk about flours, sugars, and flavorings. Those are the three big things that we see in the industry, in just the food industry. We see flours, sugars, and flavorings being so adulterated, and they are to a point where we can't even taste our food anymore. We're like, is this real food, or is this, like, what is this? Because when you taste real fresh food, your taste buds are like dancing and are doing this like happy crazy dance, going, oh my word, this is amazing, right? So let's take flour. Let's start with that. And I'm gonna kick my dog out because she is over here being crazy and scratching and snarling and sniffing. So come on, sit someplace. Come. She may want in, but we'll see. Okay, so how many of you in the comments, tell me if you have experimented with any other flours other than white flour, and tell me what you've experimented with. What have you tried? How has it worked? Because I've been there. I'm not a flour snob, I'm a flour hoarder. I've tried so many flours, and when I first met my husband and we first got married, my mother-in-law, like, she wowed me. She's like, oh yeah, I made that with like oat flour. I just kind of like ground my oats and made like these brownies with oat flour. And I'm like, those were the most amazing brownies ever. And so I tried to replicate it. I tried to do the same thing, like with all the different flours. And I took my great grandma's cutout cookie recipe, and I made cutout cookies for the family with wheat flour, and they were the most disgusting things ever. And my mom's like, yeah, like crunching on it. If you ever seen Christmas Vacation where Uncle Eddie's like gnawing on the turkey skin that is like burnt, and he like loves it. That's how my family was. They were like, oh, these are good. No, they're not really good. So if you are going to experiment for Christmas baking, please experiment before you're serving them to your family. But I promise you, if you're using Einkforn flour, you are going to just love your baked products. So you're all experimenting with, let's see here, almond and coconut. Okay. Oh, and Sue, almond flour. I love almond flour. Coconut flour. I made these coconut pancakes for my kids the one day, and thinking I was being like healthier. We were going to do like a healthy recipe, and they're like, Mom, don't ever make these again. So experiment. Coconut flour I have learned to use, and in certain recipes, it is such a dance. So it is like, you have to find a good recipe. Tiff, you are my hero. You grind your own wheat berries, and that is my next venture. So red and white wheat, wheat flour. A lot of you are saying whole wheat, kamut, and blending flours. Yes, you can totally do that, Natasha. Blending flours just to start with. So if you're just starting to experiment, you can start with white flour and throw in some einkorn or some spelt or some sprouted wheat flours. So when I first started, again, I went right from white flour all the way to whole wheat flour. Whole wheat is good in certain recipes. It's a very dense, thick flour, right? Good for breads, but maybe not pastries and baked goods. Then I started experimenting with sprouted grains. And you may have heard of like Einkforn, I'm sorry, not Einkforn, Ezekiel bread. Ezekiel bread is a really big one where it's sprouted grains. And so essentially sprouted grains, when you allow the grain to sprout, it's essentially considered a vegetable. And so there's enzymes there that are going to help with digestion. And that's essentially why people eat sprouted grains. Gluten is lower, enzymes are there to help with digestion. And so it's really easier on the digestive system. So I experimented with sprouted grains. And then I went into like sprouted spelt. And so go ahead and experiment if you want to. I found my forever favorite flour that will take the ease out of experimenting, and that's Einkforn. How many of you just comment yes if you've heard of Einkforn flour? I'm going to type it in here to help you research if you haven't heard of it. Einkor. Flour. Einkorn flour, einkorn wheat. I should just say einkorn wheat, because you can make many, many things from einkorn wheat. And essentially it is it's an ancient grain that is lower in gluten, easier to digest. I'm trying to find my facts here because I have them all mixed up. And it has 14 chromosomes compared to, conventional wheat that's grown for mass production that has 42 chromosomes. So when you look at, and I wish I had one because I took one from Young Living's farm a couple years back, and I think I threw it away. I don't know why I did. But einkorn wheat is a long, thin, skinny, tall piece of wheat, whereas today's wheat is grown for mass production, and so it's short, and the wheat is, the kernels are all together on this little fat stalk, okay, and there's bunched all together, and it's for mass production, okay, more wheat berries, more flour, right? And so that's what our culture wants, right? That's what our industry wants, mass production. Bigger, better, okay? But that bigger, better doesn't always mean that it's best for us, okay? That bigger, better makes the American population bigger, right? It leads to diabetes, it leads to digestion issues, it leads to gluten intolerances, leads to a whole host of health conditions that leave us suffering. And so that is why we want to start swapping out our flours to a healthier alternative. Does it cost more? Yes, it does. And I'm just going to lay that right out there. It costs more. When we eat better, when we go for foods that are higher quality, that aren't sprayed, that are grown a traditional way, they do cost more. They're more valuable. But guess what? We don't gobble them down. We are intentional with our eating, and that goes for our baking too. And so I'm going to talk about that when we talk about sugars, because we all, including myself, are probably addicted to sugar, right? It's just the American way. I see y'all nodding your heads, right? We all are addicted to sugar, that sweet flavor that keeps us coming back for more. And they have us. If you look at any ingredient on a package, either the first or the second ingredient is sugar. Even in a healthy, I say healthy, packaged food. Even in, I just bought like ranch dressing, and my husband's like, there's probably sugar in that. It was like a healthy organic ranch dressing. And I was like, no, there's not. I turned it over, and guess what? There was sugar in it, because they have the flavors in there that tantalize the taste buds, that get your brain going, I want more, no matter if it's organic, healthy, or just the traditional on the shelf grocery store package. So we're going to retrain our taste buds. We're going to retrain our brain by swapping out flours and sugars and flavorings where your body's not going to say, I need more, I need more. It's going to be satisfying. Okay. So Einkforn, let's talk a little bit about just why we want to swap out. So traditional wheat is called Frankenwheat because it is so genetically modified by science and scientific engineering that it's really not even wheat these days. It's so over processed. It's not your grandma's wheat. It's over hybridized and has 42 chromosomes compared to 14 chromosomes in Einkforn, which leads to a humongous gluten level in it. And I wish I would know that. I think it's like Einkforn has maybe 1% gluten, like 1 to 2% gluten amount compared to whole wheat, and wheat has about like 42% gluten. Like it is a ridiculous amount. You can go research that because I might be a little off there, but I know it's a complete, like, really ridiculous amount. And we talked about that when we talked about gut health, because remember, gluten busts out of your intestinal lining and says, I'm taking my buddies with me, and it causes inflammation. It causes low-grade inflammation. So when we're eating things that are lower in gluten, we're not going to have as much inflammation in our body, easily digestible. Dr. Mark Hyman notes that the average American consumes about 55 pounds of wheat every year. It's not just the wheat that we're consuming, it's also the gluten and the hidden components. Some of those components are calcium peroxide. It's a dough maturing agent, glycerides, bromine. That's a huge one. Bromine. It's in the same family as fluoride and chloride, which affect our thyroid. So all of these additives are for stability of shelf life, to make it look fluffy and white, but then also to enhance the elasticity of it so that we as the bakers don't have to wait as long for it to rise, or we have an easier ability to work with it, right? So when you're going to work with einkorn or any ancient grain like spelt, or even rye or anything like that, it's going to feel really weird. You're going to have to get used to it. The more that you work with it, the more that there is elasticity in it. So it takes a little bit of time to learn how to use it. But for baked goods, it's pretty simple. So here's the thing that I love about einkorn. It really is awesome for those that have, my dog is like going crazy now. I'm gonna let her in real quick. Go to bed. Okay. She's gonna drink some water and go to bed. See, I'm telling you, it's everyone's bedtime around here. She's like, what's going on? I thought it was bedtime. Where was I? Okay, so those of you that have, metabolic syndrome, let's say like diabetes, or you're pre-diabetic, einkorn flour is really good, a good alternative on occasion, not all the time, but on occasion. If you're going to have some baked goods, einkorn flour is great for that. It is this like buttery, yellowish, beautiful flour, and it just has a texture, it has a smell to it, and it has a taste to it too. Your baked goods are going to taste fresher, they're going to taste better. So I keep all my sugars, all my flours, like everything, I keep in these big pickle jars just to keep fresher. If you really want to keep your flour fresh, keep it in the refrigerator. If you really, really want to keep it fresh, you can get the wheat berries. I know Young Living was selling einkorn wheat berries there for a while, and I need to do some more research on that, because I would love to get a wheat grinder and grind my own berries, because then that is the freshest. You can keep your berries in the freezer, you can keep in the fridge, and then you can grind them fresh, or you can just keep your flour in the refrigerator to keep it fresher. Tiff, I would love to know what you do. Do you keep your wheat berries in the freezer? Marge says she keeps her flour in the freezer. Good to know. Because if you don't use it right away, I mean, we use up a lot of our oats and our flours, but if we go a season, like, you know, summertime, sometimes we're not baking as much and you get those little moths and then they create, you know, these little cobwebs and it's really gross. And then you lose all of your baking, you know, whatever you have, oats, flour, whatever. So there's less gluten, it's easily digestible, you won't have as much reaction. If you do have celiac disease, like you're super, super sensitive, then definitely stay away from einkorn. But if you're just on the sensitive side, then einkorn will be your friend. Now, I go back and forth. I love einkorn from Young Living. They have an einkorn that comes in a 2-pound box that you can purchase if you're just the occasional baker. Now, we are hardcore bakers around here, so I flip-flop. Like I'll get Young Living's einkorn, but a lot of times I'll get einkorn in bulk from either Jovial, and I'm gonna comment here. Jovial brand is a really good one. But then if you're in the Lancaster County area, there is a company or a farm, Byler's Heritage. I'm spelling it right. Byler's Heritage here in Lancaster County, and they grow their own wheat. They have einkorn, and they also have a white wheat as well that is organic, nothing added to it. Tiff says Azure Standard has flowers or berries, and Azure is a West Coast company that I need to look into more. Are they delivering, Tiff, to the East Coast? Because I have a postcard that I need to look into. Azure Standard, and they will deliver as well, bulk items. If you're that like baker that bakes every single day like we do. If you're like the occasional, then you know what, go with Young Living's einkorn. They are incredible if you just need like a small amount. But for us, like we do bulk, and we get it at the health food store, and I'll either go with Jovial or get the Heritage, the Byler's Heritage einkorn. And that's what we bake with. We bake all of our baked goods and our pastries with einkorn, and it's the same amount. So if it calls for 2 cups of white all-purpose flour, I use 2 cups of einkorn. So what my mom has noticed, sometimes she has to increase her baking soda. I don't know. That's just my mama. Increase her baking soda in those recipes. Sometimes I do have to add a little bit more with consistency. You know the consistency of like great grandma's recipe. If it's not there, add a little bit more, right? Okay. Oh, yay, good to know, Tiff. Azure Standard. I'm gonna look into that and let y'all know about that. Because I looked into that a couple years ago, and it's just a bulk food company that you can order organic food through. And yes, they are now delivering on the East Coast. Okay, it's like a Pacific Northwest company. Okay, so einkorn. Do you have questions about einkorn and where to source? You probably do. So I usually get either my einkorn through Young Living. They have a whole einkorn line that is free of chemicals, pesticides, and it's beautifully grown. Or I get it through Jovial, which I get that through my health food store. So check your health food stores, or I get it from my health food store, the Byler's Heritage as well. I mean, obviously you can get it on Amazon, you can get it online. You're probably going to pay more if you're getting it online. So check your local health food stores and ask if they can get it for you, because a lot of times if more people are asking, they're going to order it. All right. So if they're like, okay, this is a need, we need to start ordering this, they will do that for you. So let's talk a little bit about sugars. So flours, now we're moving on to sugars. There are different levels of sugar swapping. Would you agree? There's so many different sugar swaps out there. So many different ways to sweeten your baked goods. I like authentic. I like real. I used to do all the fake sweeteners. Then I went natural. I went raw sugar, right? That was level 1. Okay. Then we're bumping it up. Okay. Now we're at the point where we're doing something called succanant. And I'm going to spell that for you. If I can, succanant. Or I don't think this can be imported to the US anymore from what I have researched, but rapadura. So succanant sugar, rapadura sugar. What those two are, so raw sugar is good to start with, but it's still very, very sweet. It's really essentially the sugar cane that has been stripped down, okay? And then the molasses added back in, just a little bit, right? To give it that color, to make it look like, you know, you're doing a little bit better. You're buying a little bit healthier. It's raw, right? It's raw. Advertising is so amazing. You're going to learn this if you haven't already through your journey, that advertising really gets you. And it still gets me when I'm at the store. I pick up a package thinking that I'm like, oh, this looks really good. And then you flip it over and you read the ingredients, or you look at where it's, you know, the origin of the country that it's from, or what have you. And you're like, no, this is not. So raw sugar is essentially that. It's just sugar cane. It's just the sugar that has just been stripped down, everything, you know, taken out of it, the molasses added back in a little bit. What rapadura sugar is, or succanant, succanant, I believe, is a trade name, essentially the same thing, but it's the sugar cane that is essentially just dehydrated and granulated. I'm going to show you what that looks like. It looks like sand. So it is brown, and it looks like sand, or it looks like an ant hill, actually, because there's big chunks, there's little chunks, there's big particles, little particles, but it has everything intact. It has the minerals, it has the vitamins. Now, there's not that much, but it still has it. And I always tell people, sugar is sugar, okay? It's sweetener. It's gonna raise your insulin. It's gonna raise your, you know, it's gonna raise your blood sugar. It's gonna raise your insulin. But here's the thing. It's not gonna spike it in extreme, just, you know, like white sugar would. And so it's not gonna make your baked goods super, super sweet. It's gonna just be satisfying. It's gonna be just enough. And so I use succanant sugar just like I would if it calls for, here's the thing, if it calls for 1 cup of white sugar and 1 cup of brown sugar, I use 2 cups of succanant. I won't add the brown sugar, okay? Yes, Tiff, it has like a brown sugar flavor. It has a really good flavor. White sugar just has one note, right? Sweet. It just sweetens everything to extreme. And in our culture, we're so used to just that sweet, sweet, sweet taste. But when you start experimenting and using succanant or honey or maple syrup, you're going to have these different notes, these different flavors. And your mouth is going to be like, this is yummy. This is good. It's going to like hit different notes on your taste buds. Okay. You're going to feel satisfied. You're not going to be coming back and craving more of just sweet. You will be satisfied because this still has that it still has that molasses taste to it, that depth of flavor. So succanant is what we cook with or bake with a lot in baked items. We will also use honey from our bees. Make sure you're getting local raw honey. It has all those enzymes still intact, just to help with aid in, you know, digestion and all those things. So choose raw if you can. And then we also use maple syrup too. So a lot of times we love to get this up when we're in New York with my brother and sister-in-law, up where Marge is. When we go up there, we travel and we see all the places that they sell maple syrup upstate New York. My mom always gets us this huge gallon of maple syrup for Christmas, and it's seriously gone by like April, I think, because we use it so much in, like Marge said, in coffee, in any baked goods. I'm just thinking, like when I make granola bars or baked oatmeal, I'll either use honey or maple syrup. So you can, and you don't have to use as much. So if a recipe calls for a cup, usually maybe like a half a cup of honey or maple syrup. And it's okay. Like this is something that I learned. I thought when a recipe called for 2 cups of sugar, you had to add 2 cups of sugar. You don't. How many of you half the sugar in your recipes? Yes, right, Marge? Like you can half the sugar. You don't have to, you can cut it in half. You don't have to add all of it. And then that way it's desensitizing your taste buds as well. So you're not coming back for more and more and more. And you're actually tasting the ingredients in your baked goods, okay? So around here, we go for as pure and as raw and as real as possible. Succanant sugar, honey, maple syrup, Einkforn flour. And then for flavorings, bring on the essential oils, right? Bring them on. All the spices, all the flavors, they add depth of flavor. So this season, okay? Cinnamon, Dawn said cinnamon, yes. Cinnamon bark, do I have it here? Yes, cinnamon bark is awesome in baked oatmeal, in regular oatmeal. What have you used cinnamon bark in? I also make coffee syrups. Like I'll just do maple syrup, some cinnamon bark, and maybe some nutmeg and some cardamom. I'll just throw in some different flavors and make a coffee syrup. That way it's healthy. It's all, you know, that alternative to the grocery store, you know, that has all the sugars, all the, you know, high fructose corn syrups, all the things that don't belong in our body, that don't resonate with our body systems. So do I still add cinnamon? Heck yes, because cinnamon oil is a different flavor. It gives a depth of flavor to your baked goods. So just like 1 drop is good. Sometimes 2 drops in, that's okay. But then I'll add some cinnamon as well. Just some regular old cinnamon, just a little bit, maybe not as much, maybe half what the recipe calls for. And your taste buds are going to taste that cinnamon spice first, and then it's going to taste the depth of the essential oil. Okay, so it just plays on those taste buds a little bit differently. Yes, on popcorn, oh, and apple dumplings. And if you were at the fall gathering on October 17th, we made those pumpkin seeds that had, it was honey and cinnamon bark. No, it wasn't cinnamon bark, it was thieves and orange. So you can use thieves and orange as well. But you put that together and you put it on pumpkin seeds, or you can put it on popcorn. It's awesome to flavor those items as well. So you can make some healthy snacks for your kids. Or you can have some healthy treats at your holiday gatherings too. So some other flavors that I love for the season are, let me find it here, peppermint, of course, peppermint, peppermint hot chocolate, peppermint brownies. And when you're baking with essential oils, you can add more than you think. So when I make a tray of peppermint brownies, either homemade or from the box, sometimes I'm in a hurry. Do I cheat? Absolutely, yes. I try to do as much from like Whole Foods as possible, but sometimes I cheat. But peppermint, I add about 6 drops to my peppermint brownies, because what happens in the baking process, it bakes out. And so the more you add, the more you're going to have that flavor. So experiment with the flavor you like. But if I'm making peppermint hot chocolate, I will make a big pot that serves like 4, and I'll add like 2 drops of peppermint, because it is really strong in like a drink if it's not being cooked out. Orange is the same way. Like you can make orange hot chocolate, orange brownies. This recipe I'm going to show you in just a second, you can add orange to that, you know, chocolate candy as well, because I know chocolate and orange over the holiday season is really popular, right? Rosemary. This is the last one. Okay, wait. No, it's not. I have so many oils right here, guys. Okay, there it is. Rosemary is not really for baking, but I mean, I guess so. If you're baking bread, seasonal bread, and you make like a good sourdough bread and you add some rosemary, some fresh rosemary or some dried rosemary to your bread, you can add a couple drops of rosemary EO just to accentuate the flavor. And you're gonna have a beautiful rosemary sourdough bread that you can gift or you can have on your holiday table. But I also love to add rosemary to sea salt. I will take like a quarter cup of sea salt. Do I have it here? No, I don't. But like one of those little mason jars, those little 4-ounce cute mason jars, I fill that. I add like 3 drops of rosemary, some dried rosemary petals, shake that up, and I can gift that to my friends that love cooking. Or I can keep one for myself, and I love to put it on my chicken or on my veggies. It just adds that depth of flavor. But for baking purposes, cardamom is amazing in your baked goods. Clove and ginger. I like to add ginger to my elderberry syrup. I'll put it in my honey and add it in my elderberry syrup. I love to add ginger to any Thai food that I'm cooking. So those are some really good ones to have in your kitchen all year round, but definitely in the fall and winter months. Cardamom, clove, and ginger, cinnamon bark, nutmeg, and then orange EO as well. So those are some of my favorites to add flavors. I mean, obviously lemon as well. There are so many amazing essential oils that you can use for flavorings that if you don't have the herb on hand, you can grab the essential oil and use that. And here's a tip. If you're using something like thyme or basil or oregano and let's say sauce, don't just add a drop. You will ruin your sauce. Take a toothpick, dip it in to the essential oil, let it absorb in the toothpick for a couple seconds, pull it out, and then stir it into your sauce, whatever sauce it is, and then pull it out. It'll give just enough flavor and it won't overpower it and it won't like ruin the whole batch. Just a little life lesson, sharing it your way. So we talked about flour, sugar, and flavorings. But here is one little bonus that I'm going to share with you that I love making every season. This is my mama's recipe because how many of us love to gift sweet treats for Christmas or have them on our table when our guests come over? But we don't want to, there's this fine line. I love baking things and I love doing things in love for my friends, but I also don't want them to, I want them to be healthy too, right? So this recipe is a chocolate recipe that you're going to use a really good organic chocolate. I have it going on the stove right here. And this one, it's Sunrise Organic Cocoa Chips. And it's a 42% cocoa. Right here. There we go. Okay. It is a 42% cocoa, but it's an organic. It's not super sweet. You can even go higher. You can do like an 80% chocolate. You can get an 80% chocolate bar or even a 92% real dark chocolate. The darker, the better. Get something really high quality, melt it on your stove in a double broiler, like I did here. And mine isn't super melted, but you're gonna melt it down. And then something I love about Young Living. So we're not just oils, we are also a whole wellness company. My daughters were just using the protein powder the other day and they made a granola bar. I'm gonna have them perfect it and then I'll post it in the group for you guys because it is so good. And actually, Marge, it was one that they made with Jenna when we were up there. It has coconut oil and coconut flakes and protein powder and oat and some really good chocolate chips. So it's a great granola bar instead of grabbing those ones off the shelf. even if they say organic, a lot of times they are filled with lots of fillers. So if you can just mix something up really quick with what you have on hand, it doesn't take that much time, and you just throw it in, like, you throw it in a pan, you cut them up, and you can just grab and go. It doesn't take that much time when you're intentional about what you're putting in your body. So I have this chocolate melted here, and I am going to take, like I said, I keep everything in mason jars. So Young Living has Ningxia wolfberries, the Ningxia wolfberries that are dried, that they make their Ningxia red with. They are full of antioxidants, vitamin A. They help with eye health. And here's the thing, my kids love cranberries and raisins, but they are so, so sweet. And it's like they're just eating sugar when they eat those. So I love to get the Ningxia wolfberries. They love them too. They're a little tart, but they have a little sweetness. And we make these little chocolate yummy treats this time of year. And I'm going to add some of these. I don't follow a recipe, but I throw some of these in with this chocolate. And if you don't want to make these, you know what the other thing is that you can do that I tell some of my health coaching clients too, if you're trying to break the sugar habit and you have to have like sugary sweets, something that you can do is just get a good dark chocolate bar, like 92%, have some of these wolfberries on hand, and some almonds or some pecans, and make a little snack mix. Like just put them together in little baggies that you can grab and go. And you're getting that sweetness, you're getting the antioxidants from the wolfberries, from the chocolate, and you're getting the protein from the nuts too. So it's a great alternative. But we like to put it all together in like this melted chocolate goodness and make these little clusters. So I have some organic walnuts and pecans, and I'm just going to throw these in. You can roast them ahead of time if you want to. That would be even better. I'm just going to throw some of those in, mix it all up, and you can put them in like one of those silicone molds if you want to. I just kind of like plop them out like little cow patties on parchment paper, and then I top them with some more wolfberries and some more nuts and some really good flaked sea salt. And let me show you what I use. I scored this at my discount store. If you're in the Lancaster County area, like the discount stores are just like gems, because this mold-on sea salt, it's like flaked sea salt, these big flakes of sea salt. Pretty valuable. If not, you can just get big chunks of sea salt too, and put some sea salt on top. It is going to satisfy all your sweet and salty cravings all at once. Okay. This recipe I will post in the Facebook event, and I will repost it in our group because it's in there. Okay. You'll want this for the holiday season. So anyway, so I have it all mixed up here. It's real chunky and beautiful, and I'm going to put this out on a baking tray, top it with some more nuts, some more wolfberries, and some sea salt. And we're going to grab that and just eat that for just a mid-afternoon snack. Maybe gift it to some friends. We're meeting some friends tomorrow afternoon for a park play date, and so we'll probably take that and some coffee. And isn't that a beautiful treat to take to like someone's house or gift it in a little beautiful package, right? And then you don't feel guilty that you're giving all this sugar to your friends. All right. So wolfberries, yes, they are great to get. They're great to snack on. And again, they have all the beautiful properties that Ningxia Red has. So I'm going to open it up. What are your questions? It's a small group tonight, so go ahead and you can unmute yourself if you want to. What are your baking questions? What are your health questions? And I'll answer a few of them before we're over for the evening. Anyone? Okay, Marge, you said when you add oils instead of dry seasoning, it's always less. Dry seasoning is always more. There's so much more potency. And I think I shared that one with the toothpick trick. If you're baking, you can always add more, but if it's just like a drink or a sauce, do the toothpick trick. Definitely. Okay. These are quiet groups. If you have any questions, you know to reach out to me. Okay, monk fruit sweetener. Okay. I go back and forth with, I don't know too much about monk fruit, but agave syrup, they said was a huge health, sweetener. But what it did, it still spiked your insulin. It tricked the brain. So I do believe that like some of these things, are they really a true sweetener that we can be using? So I go back and forth. I'm not sure about monk fruit and what it does to the body. Again, everything in moderation. Same with honey, same with maple syrup. It's still super sweet, so use it in moderation. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably, I mean, any of these things is expensive to bake with. Honey's expensive to bake with. Maple syrup is expensive to bake with. So that's why we're not going to be using a whole lot of it. All of this stuff is going to be in moderation. So we might be using it a little bit more over the holidays or, these cooler seasons where we want something sweet in our home. But it's definitely going to be used a lot less. So yeah, I don't know too much about monk fruit. I haven't used it a whole lot. I usually go back to what I have that is in my area, in my region. It's kind of like seasonally grown, I guess you could say. So that's where I really gravitate towards the maple syrup and honey a little bit more to use, because coconut sugar is another thing that you can use that is low on the glycemic index. It looks just like succanant sugar, tastes a little bit like succanant sugar as well, and it doesn't spike your insulin. I just, that's one thing I choose not to use. There's so many different sweeteners. So find one that you really enjoy using and that works well and responds well to your body. So definitely go for that. So the honey for sugar ratio, I will use about half. Like if it calls for a cup of sugar, I'll use a half a cup of honey. That's what I'll do. And then you can also experiment with that too. If you like it sweeter, then definitely add a full cup. So Dawn, for diabetic baking, definitely succanant. If you are diabetic, coconut sugar might be your best bet for diabetic baking. Succanant is good, but coconut is even better because it's not going to spike your insulin as fast. But you have to know what works for your body. I found that I didn't know like coconut sugar. How natural is that? Where does coconut sugar come from, right? So I know succanant comes right from the sugar cane. It's dehydrated. Again, it's not going to spike it as fast. It's going to be more of like a slow spike and a slow drop. I know coconut sugar is a little bit on the slower spike and slower drop. So choose what's best for you. So either succanant or coconut. Okay. You guys have to definitely, I feel like I opened your world to different kinds of sugars, different kind of flours. Do some experimenting before you start gifting these things to your friends and family. Find a cohort, a little group that you can experiment on and taste test and be like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Before, serving them at the holiday table or gifting your great grandma's recipe to your, friends and family. So thank you all for joining tonight and joining me in my kitchen. And I'll post this recipe in our group and in the Facebook group. And next week, Sarah Paul is going to be talking all about gratitude, because obviously November is a month that we just need to be reflecting and being grateful. Not just this month, but all month, all year. And especially now, when things are so weird, right? gratitude is the best thing that we can do for ourselves, being grateful, taking that time. So she'll be talking about that next week, and she'll post the link for next Monday. Have an amazing evening, guys. Take care. Happy baking.